Anyway, very good morning to all the participants here, and I am really honored to be part of this online this thing webinar on science fiction. I was a part of it last year also, thanks to Dr. Arvind Mishra and Dr. Navle. So this year also they invited me, so I am really honored, and it's a real privilege to speak on this platform. Dr. Navle, can I share screen? Can I start my PPT
Yes,
presentation?
yes, 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 ma'am.
Okay, okay, fine, fine. So, right. 1 minute then. Yeah, so the screen is visible to everybody. Yeah, so today is the second day. Yesterday I was out the whole day, unfortunately, so I couldn't join in, but I will catch up with the video recordings. I'm sure it went off very well yesterday. Now, today I have this privilege of introducing this young indie science fiction filmmaker, Sudipto Shankar Roy. But before I bring him on, he is already there. But before I bring him on, I would just like to go back in time a little bit. Science fiction is all about looking forward. You know, it's speculative literature, speculative filmmaking about the future. But now, with your permission, I would like to go back a little bit to trace, very sketchily trace the history of science fiction films, because if we have to understand, if we have to position Sudipto Shankar Roy in this lineage of science fiction film, then we have to keep in mind how science fiction film has developed over these years, or over this more than 100 years that cinema, of the history of cinema. So this image would be familiar to many of you. It's an image from Georges Méliès's 1903 film, A Trip to the Moon. Now, why I have made this is considered to be the first science fiction film, and it came close in the very early, very nascent years of the history of cinema. Now, the Lumiere brothers had started by showing these actuality films, and within 2 years, Georges Méliès brought to us something completely different. So, according to Georges Méliès, what happened is he, quite by accident, he discovered these magical qualities of cinema, because he had acquired that cinematograph, that, you know, that machine from the Lumiere brothers. He had kept it on his windowsill to record the scene, our street scene outside. And at some point of time, it got jammed, and he didn't realize that the camera is not rolling anymore. After 1 hour or so, when he realized it, because it's a hand crank thing, it used to be a hand crank machine. So he wound it again, and he set it rolling. Then after he developed the film, he found that these are his words, for no reason at all, a bus got transformed into a hearse. Meaning 1 hour back, a bus was passing, then the film got stuck. Then when it started rolling after 1 hour, from approximately the same spot, a hearse was passing. So when he saw the whole thing at one go, putting it in a projector, it had a magical effect. For no reason at all, a bus got transformed into a hearse. And through this so-called accidental happy accident, Méliès discovered that he could do all kind of magical tricks with this particular instrument, because Méliès himself was also a magician. So this is one quality of this medium, or of this technology, which the Lumiere brothers had not imagined. They had thought that this cinematograph, this machine, the movie camera, is a very good instrument for recording the reality, archiving all the important events, etc. But the fact that with the same machine you can create magical effects had escaped Lumiere brothers completely. And it was Georges Méliès who untapped this hidden potential of the medium. And one after another, he made magical films, and with every film, he improved and he became more and more ambitious. Now, he told stories also. He adapted stories, well-known stories, but he adapted those stories where he had the chance of showing off his magical effects using this the cinematograph, or the medium, the technology of the day. So here is a small excerpt from The Trip to the Moon, So let us enjoy. Many of you might have seen it already, but anyway, so let us see this small, it's about a 14 minutes long film. So I have taken out a very small clipping just to give a flavor of Méliès's work. Yeah, so they are approaching the moon. They embarked on the spaceship, they are approaching the moon. The moon is smiling at them, maybe a welcoming smile. And then the spaceship will soon land on the moon. Okay, the spaceship has landed on the moon. And again, from another perspective, we see the spaceship landing. These people are coming out, astronauts, they're happy to be in this new land on the moon. And then all kinds of adventures will follow after this. And eventually they will be attacked, and then they will get into the spaceship and move off back to the earth, and they will fall down into the sea. So this was in 1903. I mean, the moon trip to moon, actual trip to moon was way into the folds of the future. But Méliès had imagined a trip to the moon, and this is how he expressed his imagination in his chosen medium. So which is quite interesting. Then Méliès, after this, he made other so-called science fiction films like The Impossible Voyage, the very next year, 1904, Conquest to the Pole. He adapted classical literature to his own, I mean, in his own way, and he made this. These are all short films. And Méliès belongs to this era which we say primitive mode of representation. That means that in that era, in these early years, cinema hadn't become a big industry. Okay, it was still a kind of cottage industry, and people worked in an artisanal mode. Now, because Méliès's films became very popular, he made a lot of money, and he had built his own studio, Star Films. He had his own studio, Star Films, but that studio was nothing compared to these big Hollywood studios that we know. Okay, so people still worked with small budget, in a small scale, which we can say like a cottage industry or as an artisanal mode. So that's how Méliès worked. But this particular genre, the genre that he introduced of science fiction, people didn't call it science fiction. Maybe you can say fantasy films. This became very popular, and there were many other films that followed. So we can generalize science fiction films, that science fiction films explore the charmed zone of intersection where empiricals overlap with the transcendental. So empirical means what we see around the world, the reality as we know today, something that we can experiment and touch and feel. That is the empirical world, and transcendental is something that transcends our everyday experience and takes it to another level. So this cinema can take us to another level of experience which is not there in our everyday life. So Méliès had untapped the potential, and many other filmmakers followed, and this particular genre became a very, very popular genre. So the visual style of science fiction films is characterized by the clash between the familiar and alien images. So familiar images and very, out of the way images. So there is a constant dialogue between these two. So now these other science fiction films, many of which are again adaptations of famous science fiction literature. So Frankenstein was made by Edison Studio in America in 1910. Then 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Jules Verne's book was adapted by Stuart Payton, again an American. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Louis Stevenson's work, again American, Paramount Pictures. The Mechanical Man, first robo, representation of the first robo on screen by, it was an Italian production. Okay, so these are just a few of the science fiction films that we got in the silent era. In the silent era, because sound came to cinema in 1927, so anything that happened before 1927 was silent films. Okay, but now in the silent era, I mean, something that was really mind-blowing that was presented to the world came from the UFA studios of Germany. And collectively, these are known as German expressionist films. So the first German expressionist film is The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari in 1922. And then after a few years came this Metropolis by Fritz Lang. And then in between there were many other films. Now, UFA studio, all these German expressionist films were made almost 100% inside the studio. So they didn't take the camera to the outside world at all. They created the world of their fantasy and imagination inside the studio. Now, the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, because it was made immediately after the First World War, so Europe was devastated and there was economic shortage everywhere. So, as a result, it is a comparatively low budget film, and expressionist painters were called to paint the sets. Instead of having 3D sets, they had painted sets inside the studio. So that was this Metropolis. It's about a sleepwalker and the person, psychologist, the director of as a mental asylum, who owned the sleepwalker. And the sleepwalker created havoc in that small town where the fair was held, and there were one murder after another and all that. Okay, so and there is a very strong social message also in this film, very tongue-in-cheek social message. Metropolis is a much more sophisticated film, much more high budget film, where this complete set of a city was built, where the upper layers of the city was inhabited by the industrialists and their family, and the lower, the underground layers were inhabited by the workers. So clearly the city had a very strong vertical division. And one day, a girl called Maria, who used to teach the children of the workers, she brought them, the children, to the upper level to give them and see how these people live. And so, that's how that clash between the two levels began. So I show you an excerpt of. Then, of course, this genre, as I said, it grew from strength to strength. And we had this entire Star Wars series, and then Stephen Spielberg and so many others. Interestingly, George Lucas, the director, the originator of Star Wars, his directorial debut was a science fiction which was called THX 1138, which he made in 1971. That was his directorial debut. Okay. Then he made Star Wars. And when he gave the idea of Star Wars to the studio, people were not confident in George Lucas's abilities. So they were not willing to spend too much money. So in many ways, the Star Wars 1 was also made with a lot of experimentation and in a kind of this artisanal mode, not in the lavish studio mode of production as we know. Steven Spielberg wrote and directed his first independent film in 1963, a 140-minute science fiction adventure film called Fireflight. Okay. And then, of course, later he made Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he made E.T., he made Jurassic Park. Okay, so one film after another followed. So now we have a plethora of science fiction films. All are extremely sophisticated. Christopher Nolan's films we all know, and there are others also, Arrival and other things. The Terminator series is there. So there are different kinds of science fiction films, and it has broken into different subgenres. Even our Woody Allen also made a science fiction film at one point. Basically he makes satirical films, but he also made a science fiction comedy film. Now, coming to the Indian scenario, obviously because of budget and other things, the science fiction films, although there is a lot of science fiction literature, quality science fiction literature, but science fiction films haven't really flourished in India. But South India, particularly Tamil and Telugu films, one encounters a lot of good science fiction films. The first one is Kadu, made in 1952, which was an Indo-American co-production. Then in 2018, we have this Antariksham 9,000 kilometers per hour, then Tick, Tick, Tick in 2018. And from Bollywood, then we have got this Mr. India, which had the science fiction element, that because he became invisible, that invisible cloak was there, and the so-called Mr. India, Anil Kapoor, he became invisible. Okay, so that element was there. Then Koi Mil Gaya, which is Hrithik Roshan's film, that he was born a deformed child, but then he met an extraterrestrial force, and through that light radiated from that force, he became a normal child. In fact, he also got superhuman abilities. So Koi Mil Gaya, and then the entire Krish series followed. So these films we have got from Bollywood, which have these science fiction elements in them. And then, since I'm a Bengali, I was trying to scan my mind about the Bengali science fiction films. And these are the only films I could recall. Patal Ghor, made by this Black Magic Productions. Abhisen, which came later than Patal Ghor, but it was a much lower budget film. Patal Ghor was comparatively high budget film. And then the latest one by Sandeep Satyajit Ray's son, Professor Shonku, or El Dorado. In Satyajit Ray's that children's film where we have that Mogojastro, we have a little bit science fiction element because he imagined a machine. Scientists have created a machine for brainwashing. Okay, so there was a little bit of science fiction element. Hirok Rajadesha is there. But now we come to the film that was never made, which is a film called Alien. This is again a very well-known story. I mean, nothing new. Okay, that Alien, he had gone to Hollywood. Columbia Pictures was supposed to produce this film, but it never saw the light of the day. It never took off actually. So in the script of Alien, Satyajit Ray has created a microcosm in a small village in Bengal. So there is a dying old man, there is a little beggar boy called Haba and his grandmother, there is the village priest and the other village people who congregate at the tea stall to discuss about world affairs and the problems afflicting the village. There are also the Santals, the Aboriginals, and their Christian padri, and then the pot-smoking sadhu under the banyan tree. Now, this tiny village, it has these diverse people in the rural hinterland of Bengal. It is by no means isolated from the rest of the world because an American engineer is here, okay, with his advanced drilling technology to tap the underground water. So even though it's in the rural hinterland, it's not broken, isolated from the rest of the world. So he has been brought here by a Marwari businessman with his own profit motives, and there is a young reporter from Calcutta reporting about the development project in rural India. So that is the world that Satyajit Ray has created in the script of this film, Alien. And these are his sketches of the alien. So into this motley crowd comes an alien from beyond the solar system. His spaceship lands unnoticed on the lotus pond tucked away inside the bamboo grove. But the question is, why has the alien landed in this Bangalpur? And the alien is a benevolent force. You know, when he comes to the paddy field, the paddy harvest grows, the lotus flowers bloom when his spaceship lands on the lotus pond. He can bring the dead back to life. Okay, he has all these magical powers which he can use to the benefit of the people. So he is a benevolent extraterrestrial force. Okay, but the question is, why is the alien landed here, this village called Mangalpur? Now, scene 80, which is towards the end of the script, has a hint of an answer. And this is the scene 80, one of the last scenes in Alien. So, interior day cabin of spaceship. The alien sits cross-legged in the classical manner of the Buddha. A red disk of sunlight on his face and around his head is there, and he is singing a simple song about flowers and rivers and paddy fields that Haba has taught him. Now, around the alien, in the gravityless cabin of the spaceship, floats Haba, that beggar boy, in a state of blissful slumber. That is, he is asleep, he is in a state of coma, suspended animation. And various specimens of the earthly flora and fauna that he has helped to collect for his friend. A frog, a firefly, a snake, a fish, a lotus, a squirrel, and a bulbul bird, all in a state of suspended animation. So it begins to, this alien spaceship begins to look like a Noah's Ark. He has collected various flora and fauna and kept them in a state of suspended animation. He presses the button and in the next scene, the spaceship flies off. Okay, it goes away from Mangalpur. So the question is that where did the alien take them and why did the alien collect these creatures from the earth? Why did he come to the earth to collect these creatures? The script directly does not offer any answer, but I have two conjectures. One is possibly the alien came from a planet which in its advanced stage of civilization had destroyed itself, got converted into a barren land, and so the alien came to take life from the earth so that he could, in his own home planet, maybe he could start life afresh. That can be one possibility. The other possibility is that this script of Alien was written in 1967. So in 1967, Cold War was at its peak and the world was very much in the threat of being destroyed by a nuclear war. So maybe this alien had sensed that and he was taking some specimens from Earth and preserving them that in case the earth gets destroyed by nuclear war, in case we destroy each other, then again he will come back to the earth and plant them back on the earth so that again life can regenerate itself. Okay, so these are two conjectures that came to my mind. The script doesn't give a direct answer. So there is always a reason for every action. Okay, therefore there is a cause behind every effect, but limited human intelligence can't always fathom the cause. So that's it. So ours is a limited human intelligence. So we cannot really fathom the extraterrestrial intelligence's cause, that why, what is his motivation, why he came here. But because this film was never made, so obviously we haven't seen this scene. Okay, that's our misfortune. Now, many years later, in the year 2017, I was in the preview committee, selection committee of this Kolkata International Film Festival, and a small film was there, had made an entry. It was called The Bounty. Okay, so I played this opening scene of this film Bounty. Okay, so here we see that something like a spaceship that opens, and this fellow in a motorcycle like thing, he moves off, he goes to a world, outside world, which is completely devastated. Okay, and he is looking for something. He has a kind of scanner here, which is he's looking for something, and obviously he is looking for signs of life. Okay, so something like this alien and Haba, and that the alien who had come, but the look wise he is not like the alien that Satyajit Ray had imagined, and he has a more human kind of look, and his vehicle is also different. Okay, so this is the opening scene, and then again in the closing scene, which again in some ways it has similarity to the alien, to scene 80 of Alien. And let us see what he does. He comes back to his spaceship, and this is the life he has got: a plant, greenery. Okay, so he has put this, and now the camera zooms out, and we see many such life forms he has been collecting. So again, it's a Noah's Ark. He's collecting life. He's collecting plants specifically, okay, which has become rare in this devastated earth. But here in his spaceship, he's trying to recreate that greenery. Okay, so this bounty was made by Sudipto Shankar Roy, who is here with us today. Fortunately, thank you, Sudipto, for joining us. And this was again made in an completely, I mean, the stories Sudipto's, he has made it home. This is entirely a home production. Okay, he started work in 2014. It took him 2.5, 3 years to complete the film, but entirely his practically solo effort. He is the director, producer, writer, everything, editor, everything. Okay, so Sudipta will tell us something about why he chose to, and he has been a science fiction addict from his childhood. He said that he has a terrible addiction for science fiction. So I would like to ask him that why did he start, I mean, from where did he get the idea, and why did he think of making this film, and what has he tried to achieve, and how he overcame technical and other hurdles. Okay, so I stop share now, and over to you, Sudipto. then please tell us something about, how the idea of the bounty struck you, and your journey to complete the bounty. So let us hear from you.
Good morning and thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Navle for having me. Uh, as you already said, I was always interested in science fiction. Actually, as a child, I was always inspired by visuals. Whether it was from films, because I was introduced to Hollywood films by my father and also by my maternal uncles from a very early age. And I was also good at painting. So before the word, the book, it's always the visual that inspires me more than anything. And when it came to this film, actually I was since I'm a film school pass out and I'm also teaching in film schools, and I always wanted to do with something with science fiction. So I thought that maybe I'll try to achieve whatever I want to in a short form, rather than making a huge film for which I'll have to depend on a producer's money, which is very hard for, because in this country it's very difficult to convince a producer to invest in a science fiction film, which is not a very popular genre. Somehow things are changing. A lot of people are doing science fiction films these days, or at least they are trying, but then it is very difficult. So uh, in 2010, there was this film called The Monsters. It was directed by a British filmmaker. It was his first feature film. His name is Gareth Edward. Now, Gareth Edward is a big shot now, but back then he comes from the background of VFX. For more than a decade, Gareth Edward was a freelance VFX artist, and every year he thought that he'll make his film, but he never got producers, or he was too busy with his work because he has bills to pay and all. So finally he decided, look, I'm not going to get any producer, I have to do it myself. So he produced, directed, shot, did the VFX himself with a skeleton crew, about 5 6 people. He traveled to Mexico City, and it's basically a road movie, The Monsters, with science fiction elements in it. And it's a very different kind of a science fiction film. It's not about space opera or big explosions or big spaceships. There's a science fiction concept or science fiction element to it, and of course there are a lot of visuals which are uh, paranormal, which are extraordinary, but then none of them, have that element of extravaganza. But as a whole, it's very effective, and it did a lot of business in the independent film circuit. So since I'm always looking for references, who's doing what all over the world, I found this film, and when I started studying about it and started getting information about it, I saw that Gareth had actually used software and equipment which is easily available all over the world. He was using something like After Effects, which anybody, like even the small animation schools that we have all over the country, like Arena Multimedia and all that, even they teach that. So Gareth could pull off an entire science fiction film by using software that is easily available all over the world. He did not hire any studio or anything. The only thing that he put in was a great amount of time. For example, he put in about 3 months, 4 months of time doing nothing but VFX for the film, day in, day out. So that was my inspiration, and I thought, if this guy could do it, then I can do it. At least I can do it in a short form. So I had set out with this idea that there is this bounty hunter. Now in popular cinema, or in popular literature, action cinema, there's this character of a bounty hunter who hardly speaks. For example, all the Sergio Leone films would have a character like Clint Eastwood who would hardly speak, and he's the bounty hunter, and he would go about uh, you know doing violence or kill somebody just for the sake of money. Nothing else matters to him. So I thought, why not have a character of a bounty hunter, and he is not just killing for money, because this is a time in civilization or intergalactic civilization where plant life is so less, because the planet Earth is devastated and it's a dystopic atmosphere. There's hardly much life there. You can't see any people in the planet. So why not create a situation where humanoids, if not humans, at least humanoids, are fighting each other just to protect one sapling, you know, because we are getting into, because of this climate warming and everything, and diminishing plant life for all these capitalist efforts and everything, we might reach a time where plant life is even more expensive than money or any other material wealth that you can think of. So that was the idea. Now, when I had to make the film, I thought I'll complete it in 6 months, but it took me, 2.5, 3 years. It's because since I was producing it, so every month, uh, like from the art direction, the costume and everything. So every month I would buy one particular equipment or one element of the costume. And that took me about like 6 months just to make the costume and everything. At that point of time, I was living in a rented apartment which had a huge living space. So I thought that I could convert it into a green screen studio, and I can call in my friends and do this film, which I did. I think I shot about 3 to 4 days, and the entire room was covered with green screen, which I had bought from eBay, and it's very cheap. It's about like an 8 by 12 feet of green screen cost me 500 rupees. So I bought a couple of them and put it around the room. And I bought in my friends. And the bike that you see is actually not a bike. I mean, I made my friend sit on a plastic tool, and for the handle that he's holding, the bike handle, I gave him PVC pipes covered in green paper, chroma paper. Okay. So back when, after the shoot was done and I got all the footage into my editing, after I had edited the entire thing, and then had to get into VFX, I replaced all this with 3D models that I built in 3ds Max, the bike and everything. The entire environment, the broken buildings and everything was built on my home computer.
Okay, I have this before after. Okay, so I can just once again share screen and show everybody what you would say just now. Uh, oh God, 1 minute, 1 minute. Stop share. 1 minute. Where is that PPT? Sharing. Yeah, so this is the thing. This is one, this green screen. Yeah, and then this is after, and the next one you were saying, this one, this bike, this is the
Yeah.
PVC pipe covered with green paper, and then later on you replaced it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so this is what you said
Yes.
before after, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And the inside the jacket, he's wearing an armor kind of a thing, which is basically
Hmm.
a chest guard which hockey players use. Okay, so I bought all of this from Amazon and eBay, and I painted them black with matte black aerosol paint. I did that, and there was also a huge gun which the other character uses. So basically, there is a company called Nerf Guns, Nerf, Nerf Guns. They make toy guns for children. Okay, and some of these toy guns have a very futuristic look, but since they're made for children, it's of fluorescent green, orange, red, yellow color. That would not go with my film. So I bought this huge Nerf gun, and then I painted it black and gave it some weathering effect and everything. And that's how I did it. And there is also the other character which has scars on his face. So I did not have a makeup person to do it. So I studied from YouTube how to make this makeup effect because I needed the other person to look like a villain. Okay, and he had scars from a previous conflict or something. So I studied from YouTube how to create this, and I found there is a liquid. It's called collodion, and the good thing is once you apply it, it's very easy to pull it out. You just have to apply water and it goes out. But it gives a brilliant effect of a scar. So all I had to do is I bought this collodion liquid, and I had brought in a student. Right now he's a professional, but back then he was a student, and I did the makeup myself, and I applied it over his face, and that was the first time I was doing it also. So I did not have any time to monitor or rehearsal or anything. That was the first time I was doing it, and it came out brilliant. It's there in the film as well. So yeah, as you mentioned, cottage industry. That's how I did.
Okay. So now again, so that was your experience of the first film, all right?
Yeah.
And it
Yes.
was, I remember it was received quite well at the Calcutta International Film Festival, although it didn't get the first prize,
Yeah.
but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. So then after that, you became more ambitious and you made this film, Onibarjo, okay, which is a longer film, all right? It's a longer film. So you will of course speak about Onibarjo, but let me show this the first sequence of Onibarjo here. Okay, all of you can see the screen, I hope.
Yes, Subha.
Okay, yeah.
Please go ahead.
that was the opening scene of Onibarjo. Now, the first thing that strikes me is this is definitely an outdoor location. Like Bounty was totally indoor, green screen, etc. But here I'm sure this is not green screen. I don't think this is green screen. This is an outdoor location, isn't it? Seaside.
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
that is one. I mean, in the this thing of making, that is one difference that strikes me. And then you please tell everybody about this film, the central idea, the core idea of this film, and then about making. I haven't made other clippings, so you're free to show more clippings. So yes.
Okay, so this was about actually, since I'm always discussing science fiction ideas with friends and films, and also the fact that I keep on writing a lot of small scripts and stories for science fiction films, and I keep discarding them as well. Uh, what happened was there was a friend of mine, and if you see the credits, his name is also there as a writer of the story. Although he did not write it, what happened was he came to me with this idea that there is this author, a science fiction, Bengali science fiction author, who travels to a place like Digha or Mondaramani. Both are like beachside towns in West Bengal, and it's a frequently people visit these places in the weekend and everything. So he told me that what if a science fiction, Bengali science fiction writer travels to Digha or Mandarmani and is basically trying to write something. He's staying there alone in a cheap hotel or a resort, and he suddenly meets a character who is not a who looks like a human being, but he's not a human being. And after keen observation, he observes that he's very different. He's doing things that are not possible, by laws of physics and laws of science that we are so accustomed to. And then what he realizes is that this human being is not actually human being. It's an alien. So I really like that idea because the problem is we are always, as filmmakers, we are always inspired or influenced when it comes to science fiction by the marvelous space odyssey that Hollywood creates, because they have the money, the time, and the infrastructure to do it. But if you try to blindly follow that, then what happens is our storytelling, our visuals are not rooted in our own country and in our culture. Okay. So that was a problem. So I did not want the film to look outlandish. So we had further, discussions. And then I thought that I would go to Mondarmani, and this time I would not use green screen at all, because using green screen is absolutely out of question, because including me, we were like 5 people who went to shoot there, and that included my actors as well. And when I'm shooting in a huge landscape like that of a seaside, I would require too many people in my crew to just hold a huge green screen steady in that wind. So what I did was, instead of using a green screen or a chroma key, I used the sky itself as a blue screen to key out elements and put in more elements in the film. Uh, Now what happens is this alien character at the part that you saw, that there's a localite who is, for some reason, probably he's drunk, probably he's not, he's exhausted, whatever it is. He's walking along the beach, and then he's being encountered by this light orb like a thing, which then goes inside the forest, and he follows it, and an illuminated humanoid being comes out of it and kills him and takes on his body. Now, this is a very popular, you know, concept in science fiction. It's called the body snatcher. Okay. Since the alien entity, it's like a glowing light. It cannot mix well with the population, with the human population. So what it does, it finds a lonely character along the beach. It kills it and then takes control over its body. Uh, can I show a few more clippings?
Yes,
Of
please.
course,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. It says that host disabled participant screen sharing. So I think
Oh, so Dr. Navle, you have to allow him to share.
Yes. Within 1 minute, 1 minute,
yeah,
I
no
will
problem.
give the access.
Make him co-host or something.
Yes. Dudgaonkar sir, am I audible to you?
Sudipto, which part do you want to show? Because I have the film, so I can. Which part? Tell me.
The part where the writer meets the person,
Okay,
the
let
birds and
me
everything for the
take
first time.
out the film first. Yeah, I'm sharing screen. So you tell me, I will fast forward. Okay. I will fast forward and I will bring it to that point. So all this we have seen. Yeah. So this we have seen. Now this is that writer, science fiction writer, right?
Yeah.
In
Now
that
he goes to the beach. He goes to the beach.
So he is the writer. Yeah. So shall I play from here or little later?
A little later. A little later.
Okay.
Just before he observes the other man. Yeah, from here.
From here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just pause for a moment.
Pause. Okay.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
if you look clearly, the man in the background,
Hmm.
there's something shining in his hand.
Yeah.
Okay. And there are these birds that are flying almost around him, and they're not going anywhere else. Now play, please.
Hmm.
And as the writer approaches, the light diminishes because he knows that someone is nearby.
বলছি আপনি কি বার্ড ওয়াচার? আচ্ছা, আপনার হাতে ওটা কি বলুন তো? ও সরি, আমারই বোধহয় দেখতে ভুল হয়েছে।
Yeah, can you please pause
Ah,
and go back to the shot where we can see the footsteps clearly.
hmm. This one?
Yeah, here. Yeah. So basically, what happens is,
Huh.
so this is the writer that we see now, and that was the other guy, and he tries to make some conversation, but the other person is not interested. He seems very indifferent, as we saw. And then, just as he's about to go away, something happens. There is a sound. We see what happens. The writer does not. We see that the character has vanished and the birds have vanished. And when this writer turns back, he sees that there is just the footsteps and there is no one else. Not the birds, neither the man, nothing. So the what happens was, like, since this character, he's already a science fiction writer, and he is curious about all kind of paranormal things and these illusions and everything, that he engages himself to put them in his stories, because that's how he makes a living as well. So this
तर सर एक नाव
happening,
याचा एक फोटो काढून घेते आणि ते जयरामांचं ठेवले की नाही की शेवटच्या दिवशी
can I speak?
Yeah, continue, Sudipto, continue.
Yeah. So when this happens, he becomes very intrigued. Okay. Because what he observes is that there are footsteps of someone who had walked to the beach. Just a moment ago, he had seen that person, and suddenly that person has vanished, and there is no footstep of the same person of going back. Because when we walk on the beach, on the sand, we usually leave our footprints, right? And footprints are both ways. We go and then we come back. So there should be two sets of footprints. What he finds is that somebody had come whom he had met some time ago. There are his footprints, but when he turns back, the person is not there, and there are no footprints of him going back. So this observation becomes, very intriguing for him. And throughout the day, he thinks about it, and he discusses this with a boy in the hotel who has no clue what he's talking about. And later on in the story, he meets the man again when even a bigger phenomenal thing is happening. Can we go to that scene?
Which one?
The whale scene. Just a little before that.
Little before.
A little before the whale scene.
সেটা কি just guide me. This one? No.
No. After that. Much later.
Whale, you said whale.
Yeah.
Sure.
Pause.
Pause.
Yeah, I mean,
Huh.
after that, much after that.
Okay.
No, even after this.
এখানে, here.
Yeah, you can keep it from here. Yeah.
Okay.
So the character cannot sleep at night. He's gone out. And he's also a little intoxicated and all that. And he has had a bad dream.
আপনি বোধহয় অসুস্থ বোধ করছেন।
Yeah, you can stop here.
Stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is something he sees out of the ordinary, and he's totally flabbergasted and shocked, and in all probability he's not feeling well. Okay, because this is something that you don't see ordinarily. You know, a huge humpback whale, it's not in the water, but it's floating in the sky, and then it enters a portal. Now everything is being, done by this humanoid alien, and it vanishes into the portal. And then the alien realizes that he's been looking. He turns back, he's not violent or anything, and he realizes that this man obviously has not seen anything like this before in his life. And he tells him that, well, you don't, I don't think you're feeling well. And after this, what happens is he accompanies this man to his hotel room, and they have this man-to-man conversation where this writer, obviously, like, he's in awe and can't believe his own eyes. He asks this person that, who are you? What's your identity, and what are you basically doing? Because this is too much to take in. And then gradually, step by step, as the conversation extends, this humanoid or interstellar person, he actually reveals to him what's his real purpose is on this planet, and what's he doing with all these birds and this fish and plants and everything. What he's basically doing is that he's taking samples. Again, the Noah's Ark principle applies here. He's taking samples of living creatures from this earth, and he's, through this portal, he's sending it somewhere else for their protection. And when he asks why, because this explanation and everything happens in a trance in the hotel room, and when he needs an explanation that why he's doing it, he wakes up, it's morning, and it's a totally apocalyptic scenario, you know throughout throughout the place. Now if you can go back to the last scene where he like wakes up in the morning.
This is the conversation. So that, yes.
Sure, the conversation is
So entire
not
human
required.
history of human civilization you have told through this conversation.
Yeah.
This one from here, later.
Yeah, you can keep it from here. Yes.
Okay, from here.
Excuse me, ma'am. You should make me host so that I can also make him co-host. I can make sir co-host.
Let us finish this, then I'll make it.
Please.
এই পৃথিবী ধ্বংসের মুখে, এতে নতুন করে প্রাণ সঞ্চার করা দরকার। সৃষ্টির শুরুতে প্রয়োজন বিনাশ। এই পরিকল্পনা ভীষণই নিষ্ঠুর, তাই এই কার্যসিদ্ধির দায়িত্ব আমার উপর। সেটাই আমার পরিচয়। বহু সহস্র বছর আগের করা ভুল শুধরে নিতে হবে। যে জাতি সভ্য হওয়া সত্ত্বেও এত বর্বর, তার অস্তিত্বের কোনো মূল্যই এই ব্রহ্মাণ্ডে নেই।
Yeah, you can stop it.
ভয় পেও না।
Stop. Okay.
Yeah. So, basically, this is the end. When he wakes up, he finds finds his answer to why this person is here and whatever he's doing and why he's doing it, is that he feels that life has to re-begin on this planet, and everything has to be destroyed before we can restart. So basically, again, this is a very popular science fiction trope, you can say. It's there in The Day the Earth Stood Still. uh, First it was made by, I think it was made by Robert Wise during the black and white period, and later it was made again in early 2000s, starring Keanu Reeves and all. So that it's been a little, the end is a bit inspired from that. So that is pretty much the theme and the story and everything.
Mhm. Yeah. So, how long did you spend making this film, Onibarjo?
Firstly, actually, even before we could shoot, we had to do a lot of planning,
Mm.
because we had very few people. As I said, including myself, we were just 5 people, uh, and we couldn't even do recce. So we did not go there before and select the locations, anything. So we didn't any of that.
Mm.
So basically, in most of these films that I do,
Mm.
I have a cousin. Okay, I have a cousin
Mhm.
uh, who is not like me, who is very different, because I spend most of the time in front of my computer, and he spends most of his time on his bike.
Mm.
So he's gone to different parts of Bengal on his bike with his friends and everything. And I consulted him, and I saw photographs of, he photographs that he had taken of different places in Mandarmani. And while I was writing the script, I was, consulting him and seeing these photographs and everything. And I told him, look, I don't have the money and the time to go there twice. So I'm, depending on your judgment. So I'll just go and just start shooting. Because usually I also do a lot of storyboards. But for this film, I could not do any kind of storyboard because I was not physically aware of how these things, I mean, how these places are, how big the room is, how big the gate is, where I can place my actors and everything. So that was everything on the flow. I had gone there, I had a script to follow, and we just started shooting it. And the preparation time for that, I took about 3 to 4 months just to prepare, because usually actually the script was much bigger. So I had to cut it short so that I could, because I had 4 days time to go there, shoot, and come back. And what props I need, what costumes I need, what equipment I need, and whatever that I can do without, so that I don't have to carry things around, because we didn't have too many people. And all, like, there were two main characters who were also my assistants. So when they're giving a shot, they're giving the shot, they're acting, while the other person is giving a shot, the other who's not facing the camera, he's basically assisting me, or handling the reflector, or doing something else, doing some production work. So that's how we did it. And but the most amount of time that was given was obviously during the post production. It took me about 9 to 10 months to edit and do the VFX. Like, some VFX shots took me at least 5 6 days. Some VFX shot took me 10 days to complete. So, and all done in my home, at my home, on my own computer.
Okay.
One thing that we were very particular about is that the script had a lot of night scenes,
Mm.
exterior night scenes. Now, exterior night scenes are very difficult to shoot, because then you need a whole lot of light and whole lot of people and gaffer and generator and all that.
Mm.
So there was no way we could do that. So what I did was, all the exterior night shots were actually shot during the day.
Mm.
It was in the early morning, or a little bit in the evening, when the sun was not too high and there was no dark shadows. So later on in the post, we converted all these day shots into exterior night shots.
Yeah. So I was in fact about to ask that you use the sky as the blue screen, so you must have shot during the day. Although
Yes,
we see
yes,
night here, I was about to
yes,
ask you that.
yes, yes.
Okay, so a lot of inventiveness, a lot of creative technologically also using the technology creatively has gone into this. I can see, and it has been fairly well received. We saw so many Lawrence. It has been to several festivals, I believe,
Yeah,
isn't
yes.
it? Acha,
11 festivals. Yes.
11 festival. So, will your next film also be self-produced, or do you think you can dare look for a producer for your next film?
Actually, see, firstly, it's see, a lot of people are already aware. It's not nothing new that I'm saying. We have had this tradition of science fiction in Bengali literature for a long time, for a very long time. And it is not just Satyajit Ray. There have been other authors as well. I mean, recently in the month of May, author Anish Deb passed away, who was also a very well-known and popular science fiction writer. Now, the problem of translating these, the vision of a writer of a science fiction story into the big screen or whatever, big, small, medium, whatever, it takes so much, effort, time, and money that it is very difficult to get a producer to produce a Bengali science fiction film, because compared to Hindi or English, the Bengali audience is very small. Okay. So if you think about the economics, the money invested, and how far it will reach to the people, and again, it has a very niche audience. It's not that everybody likes science fiction, unfortunately. Okay. So, and another thing that I've found even among my friends and colleagues, right from my school and college days, especially when I went to film school, I saw a couple of friends who were like me, very interested in science fiction and all that, and they would always talk about science fiction films and discuss different science fiction themes and everything. But when it came to making a science fiction film, somehow everybody shies away for the fact that they think that if I'm going to make a science fiction film, they're scared that people are going to compare it with a Hollywood production.
Mm.
But it is not so. It is not so. There are a lot of science fiction films that are made all over the world, not just Hollywood films. Films done in America, but not from Hollywood. British films, other European films, which they're all science fiction films, are based on a concept rather than space opera or huge special effects. Okay, that is also science fiction. So, and in this scenario, it's very difficult to get a producer. And even if we get a producer, the problem with Indian cinema is not divided into genres. It's not divided into thrillers or musical or drama or comedy. Indian cinema has a, I'm not looking down upon Indian cinema. Okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to insult our industry. What I'm trying to say is it had its own character, which is like, for example, a film like Koi Mil Gaya. Now, it apparently is supposed to be a science fiction film, but it has everything that usually a Hindi film has. It has comedy, it has action, it has
Song and dance.
it has
Yeah.
dance, it has everything. So that's the character of Indian cinema, and people like it that way. So it's very difficult to convince a producer in this country to make a film which is very specific to this genre. One thing is that, but then the future is always hopeful and always bright. If not me, someone else will do it. I'm sure about it. A lot of people are interested, and the tools are also available. But if you ask me, I have actually come to enjoy my process so much, with complete freedom, with a small group of people, because in my group, none of them are industry professionals. One of them is is a doctor, another one is an online businessman, and they have their all, they have their life set. They don't have to depend on my films for their livelihood. Okay. And in the meantime, they enjoy, working with me for the simple reason they also, work with other people who make short films and other things. But they enjoy working with me. इनफैक्ट मैं थोड़ा हिंदी में भी बोलता हूँ. क्या होता है ना, मैं काफी दिन अगर हो जाता है मैं कुछ नहीं बनाता हूँ तो ये लोग मुझे गाली देते हैं कि अब क्या, मतलब कुछ सोचो, कुछ जल्दी सोचो, कुछ बनाते हैं. बिकॉज this is something we are in our mid 30s and early 40s, but there is the 13-year-old or 14-year-old inside of us, when in the 90s when we grew up watching all these films, Aliens, James Cameron and Steven Spielberg and all that, and we have grown up reading the science fiction stories in Bengali and everything. So we want to get it out of our system. We want to have fun. Okay. So it's serious business, of course, but we also want to have fun. So
So I think we should wrap up, Sudipto. We have actually taken more than 1 hour.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I wanted to tell everybody that Sudipto is also, apart from making science fiction films, Sudipto is making a documentary on the making of Alien, or rather not making of Alien, Satyajit's Alien. And in the process of making a documentary, he is recreating some of the scenes visualized by Satyajit Ray. Okay, so we will all wait for that. When the documentary is made, we will all get a chance to see the documentary. And thank you very much, Sudipto, for taking us through your journey and sharing some of your experiences. And thank you, Dr. Navle, once again for giving us this platform